Okay, now you can hear me. Okay, great. Yeah, I have the great pleasure now to introduce you to Sylvia Pan, who is Professor for Virtual Reality at the University College London in the Department of Computing. So I thought initially that was the Computer Science Department. Would you call it computing, right? Yeah, yeah. Her interests are in VR and in neuroscience, and she has been in different media outlets already in BBC or Horizons, if I'm not mistaken. And she will talk about virtual humans or VR for medical doctor communication training. Go with.
Thank you. And hopefully this works. Okay, fantastic. I'm going to start a timer because I don't want to take too much. So yeah, I sent the title. I'm asking, should I talk about virtual humans or VR for medical doctor communication training? And so I think they put both titles there. But Art told me to talk about VR for medical doctor communication training. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. First, it's really, really nice to be here. And I think, everyone's work is, super relevant to each other, but there's not too much overlapping at the same time. So that's the kind of really great conference. I'm really happy to be here, but I'm slightly quite tired actually, because I was on the wrong bus yesterday. It wasn't easy to get from Düsseldorf to this place. But anyway, so just make sure I keep an eye on time. Right, so before going into VR, I have a question for all of you. Which one do you think is longer? Shout it out. Just shout out. Okay, so this is a homemade video. I was on maternity leave, have nothing better else to do other than playing with IKEA train tracks. So they're exactly the same size, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is that despite knowing, that they're exactly the same two pieces, you can't stop yourself from feeling the one on the left. Is that your right? You're right. Oh, sorry, your left is slightly longer. And this is something called a visual illusion. And that's obviously, I didn't discover visual illusion. Actually, Gavin Packingham, who was going to come, who's going to speak tomorrow, he had lots of those things on Twitter, and which made me really also became really interested in this. So there are many more examples. For instance, the very first one, those horizontal lines are actually parallel if you look at them closely. And then the second one, if you kind of look slightly away from it, it looks like it's animated, but it's not. It's not a GIF. It's actually a static image. And the last one, you're just going to have to take my word for it. The two places labeled, oh, can you see it? A and B. On top, there's an A. Can you see it? It's a bit light. It's clear on this screen. So the top one, there's a sort of A and there's a B. And these two squares are actually exactly the same grayscale color. If you don't believe me, you just need to go back and, not during my talk, afterwards, of course, visual illusion color. And you see this image and can use someone's trying to investigate. But anyway, so these are also the visual illusions that you can find on the internet, and we experience them in everyday life as well. So what I'm trying to say here is that our interface with reality is not as robust or reliable as we'd like to think them to be. And for me, virtual reality is exactly a technology that taps into this interface we have with reality, but is using technology such as real-time tracking and real-time computer graphics, so that it generates an illusion which could, replace reality with simulated environments, and that will then actually have an effect on how we perceive reality afterwards, right? So that's kind of the hypothesis of my talk, so basically, just in case you haven't bought by this idea, VR is a illusion. It takes you somewhere else. You look completely mad in reality, but it doesn't matter once you're in that space. You completely immerse. You're somewhere else. But taking you somewhere else is just one aspect of VR, right? And in our work, we actually take you to be with somebody else. So you're in the same room with another person. It has the same effect. You really feel this person is in front of you, co-presence, social presence, whatever you want to name it. And that is also a very strong illusion. No matter how much you know this person is not there, you can't stop feeling and reacting towards this person. And so far, I think only one person didn't reference anything work with Mel, and so that's my reference to Mel, who is sitting there. Obviously, he's the very reason, together with many of us, the reason we're actually here. So this is the work we did back in 2005. I'm going to just play the video, but just to explain, it's a cave-like system. So it's, instead of a headset, you actually are in a room, which is similar size to this podium, this sort of speakers panel here. Right? You're in a room and everything is back projected. The floor is front projected. You're wearing a pair of shutter glasses. You see things in stereo, see things in 3D. As you move your body, they display updates. So you have the strong illusion that you're somewhere else, and you have the strong illusion this person in front of you is actually with you, and they're the sort of same size as well. So now I'm just going to play the video, and hopefully the audio is going to work.
That shirt looks great on you. How much was it?
I think it was about £20. It's quite cheap. Thank you very much, though. You look very nice too.
Pay attention,
Thank you very much.
pay attention to his body language. He knows he's being videotaped, but he was just swinging his body left and back and forth. So you can clearly see he's enjoying this conversation, right? Despite the avatar didn't really look realistic or anything like that. He's enjoying this conversation so much. He actually, in order to be closer to her, he went all the way to the back wall of the cave-like system, as far as he could go. But what he didn't know is we programmed the virtual character to maintain an interpersonal distance away from him. So the more he stepped forward, the more she stepped back, right? Yeah, but the important thing is he was having a pleasant experience. He was fully immersed in it, and that's exactly what we were trying to achieve with that experiment. He's obviously a quite confident participant, but actually we built this system with the hope that we can help people who are also less confident to practice their social skills with a virtual character so that they can learn how to cope with anxiety, they can learn how to communicate with other people, and when they're ready, they can go embrace real-life social interaction. So that's really how the journey started for me. Sorry, I just need to make sure I actually have the timer, or someone tell me to stop. Give me a 5 minutes warning will help, okay? Because my mobile phone just disappeared. Okay, so since 2004-5, when I started with Mel, I've been working in this area for almost 20 years now. So I worked, my PhD thesis was about using VR for psychotherapy for social anxiety. I work in neuroscience lab looking at brain mechanism behind autism. We're still collaborating with various neuroscientists. And we also worked with the game industry, being based in London as the advantage. We have lots of creative industry, XR studios, game industries, really creative people. So we're building AI-driven characters for immersive games. In this case, it's Peaky Blinders. Does anyone know Peaky Blinders? This is a question testing how British you are, if you know you're British. Okay, but today my focus is actually going to be on medical doctor communication training because Art told me to talk about that, so I should just stick to that one. So I think I'll be able to show you 5 examples of the work we've been doing in this space. So to start with a bit of background, before the very first example I'm going to show you, antibiotics prescription. So I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of superbugs. It's basically something you will have if you overuse antibiotics. It's not a problem individually, but for the whole society, it is a problem. Okay, so if everyone will kind of use antibiotics irresponsibly, then it gives chances for different superbugs to develop, right? And overall, if we don't do anything, I think by 2050, superbugs could kill 10 million people a year, right? So all medical doctors, or in the UK, we call them general practitioners, who is kind of the first contact for everyone. They have the responsibility to safeguard antibiotics prescription, right? So very often, you come to the doctor, you have a bit of a cough, and you ask for antibiotics, right? And the doctor said, look, this is not a bacterial infection. Antibiotics won't actually help. In this case, you should just rest and drink water. But lots of the patients don't like this answer because they want the medicine, right? It's a psychological impact. It's more like a placebo, but you can't give antibiotics as placebo because it actually would contribute towards generating superbugs, right? So doctors basically say it's actually difficult when they're confronted with demanding patients. So we created this scenario, I think it was back in 2014, to exactly help them with that. So I'm just going to play the video.
Isn't it better that we give her some antibiotics to help her immune system?
Well, unfortunately, that's not how antibiotics work.
Be assuring as I can, I do not think that there is...
This is so unfair. It's going to ruin our holiday. I'm going to take this up to the local health authority. I think you are unfairly denying medicine to my mother.
Okay, I appreciate your concern. Thank you for your feedback.
My mother worked and paid national health insurance all her life. Now look at what's happening.
Sure. I mean, this has got in no way to do with your mother's health insurance payouts
They
expected?
say in the myth that old people are just invisible, not treated with respect by the NHS.
Thank you very much for
I
sharing.
suppose that it is all government.
Okay, it goes on and on. So I'm sorry to go back, stay here. So now you all know how to get antibiotics from your doctors, but don't. So you also know why we shouldn't be doing that. So we ran this study with 21 medical doctors. All of them said no in the beginning, but have a guess how many of them were able to say no towards the end? Shout out the number. Huh? Yeah, about that. 4 of them, basically, yeah. So we had 9 trainee doctors, and all of them all gave up, and 12 more experienced doctors, only 4 of them were able to resist towards the end. So it does show that experience actually helped. And actually, we also took this to the Whitehall, which is where politicians are in the UK, and we set it up. And then when we were setting this up, there were a few interns trying to, do this. And after 30 seconds, they were like, "Go, here's your prescription, leave me alone," right? But then we had a politician who was sitting there. He was not even a medical doctor, but he was just like arguing and arguing. And his assistant was like, "You're late for your next meeting." He said, No, this is important. Let me finish. So it does show that experience does help in this case, and being able to practice in a virtual reality with virtual humans could be a way to get people to improve in their real life abilities. And so the next work I wanted to show you, this work then led to our collaboration with Professor Caroline Furtema, who is the co-author of the Child Protection Practice Manual in the UK. So it's about child safeguarding. So, this is obviously a very, heavy-hearted but important issue, right? But very often when a child ended up at A&E, then you realize there's physical abuse problems, it's already too late, right? So general practitioners or family doctors in the US have the responsibility to try to pick up possible cues and actually put them in the notes to make sure there's some at least documentation, about potential child abuse issues. But very often, because general practitioners, when they see the patients, they have other sort of goals in mind, they neglect this, right? So we implemented a scenario and we planted child abuse, very obvious child abuse cues. And we didn't just, imagine them. We worked with a professor, actually expert in this area, to develop those cues. I'm just going to play with you one of the animations we made.
He'll be quiet, right, Tom? Tom, sit here. I don't know what's going on in this boy's head.
So you can see the dad is just gesturing, but the child ducked his body. And this is actually a cue all medical professionals are trained to watch out for, because the child, when the father does that, the child expects the father to actually hit him, right? Obviously, the father is not going to hit the child in front of a medical doctor, but these are the cues they should be trained to watch out for. So we want to test if they're presented with a stressful, cognitively highly loaded situation, will they still be able to spot those cues and also, very importantly, put them on their medical notes afterwards. So we ran the experiment in the cave-like system. This is also because medical doctors, actually, they said after our first experiment, they prefer to be able to see a computer screen with additional information so they can then type notes on.
Option is to have surgery through the chest to replace the valve.
So this is actually for
And
the
one
father
is,
to understand treatment.
Open heart surgery.
Exactly.
Open me up.
Exactly. And the other option is to try and replace the valve through with less invasive, as we call it, so through a catheter into the heart, which they don't have to cut you open. So that might be a better option.
Yeah. That's the leg one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
What's the worst that could happen if I do the open heart surgery?
Cool. Worst that can happen with any procedure like that is that worst can happen obviously is you don't survive it, and open heart surgery.
That's why it's important.
Am I going to die if I go to open heart surgery?
I don't think any cardiologist would recommend it if they thought you were definitely going to die at all. If I could, Dad, I need to wait. Dad, I need to do that.
For God's sake, we're having an important conversation here, you little shit. Tom can hold on, can't you? Just cross your legs. This is far more important.
Okay.
I don't mind if Tom wants to go to the loo and then you can bring him back.
Hello, mate.
Tom,
told me I'm right door.
Hi, Tom. Do you still feel like you need the loo? No. Who else is at home with you, Tom? Sister Mia. Sister Mia? Right, okay. She's 4. She's 4, is she? Right. So you and your sister, you live with your dad, do you? Yeah.
And how are you? I think your dad was a little bit rude to you then, wasn't he? Did that happen a lot? Did you sometimes swear at him?
Okay, so I'm going to pause. I think it's all very obvious to you that that is super rude, you know, and it was actually not appropriate for him to bring his child to a consultation. So there are lots of cues that were populated there for the doctors to notice. So our hope is that really we run it with 64 medical doctors. And our hope is that obviously after the consultation, they will leave a note. And hopefully the note will include plans like, you know, there are something happen, we should definitely follow up, right? So these are things we'll be looking at. But the consultation itself is about medical condition for the father. He has to choose between 2 different surgical procedures, right? So the medical doctors are quite cognitively loaded. So the first measure or dependent variable is called note. Basically, that's the note that's left by the medical doctor, which were then given to 10 independent raters to say how good the note is in terms of child safeguarding concerns. We also had independent variables such as stress level, perceived stress of the medical doctors, and their own big 5 personality. So what we found is, first of all, you can see the x-axis is the perceived stress scale. So the higher, the more perceived they are of their own stress level. And the y-axis is the quality of note. The higher, the better, right? You can see some doctors received almost full mark. So that's really good notes. But some doctors received 0 on their medical notes. In this case, they didn't even mention there was a child in the room, right? So that's definitely against any guidelines. But because maybe they were stressed with the situation, right? We also have observed a negative correlation between perceived stress note and perceived stress scale and note, which probably means, we suggest that for the medical doctors who think they're more stressed ahead of the experiment, they tend to perform worse in the notes they left, right? So probably good guidelines for the NHS to say that, hey, if you get your doctors too stressed, they might make more mistakes, which will lead to more problems later on. And we have also measured the big 5. We found 3 significant correlations. So the quality of note is positively related to agreeableness and extroversion, but negatively related to neuroticism, right? So that's also useful information, hopefully, for the NHS to say that, hey, if you want to provide trainings for medical doctors, you might want to focus on the doctors who show traits of being introverted, disagreeable, and high in neuroticism. So that's pretty useful, and without VR, it would have been difficult to do. So that's the kind of 2 experimental studies we have conducted that have already results. So I want to show you kind of 3 studies we're working on now. I don't have results yet, but I just to show you the kind of VR we're developing. So the first one was actually someone contacted me after the child safeguarding issue paper was published, because they are working with social workers. It's a university in Switzerland, in Zurich. And they were saying basically they find that social workers, when they go to investigate domestic violence situations, if there's physical violence, they have a protocol to follow. But when there's only psychological abuse, sometimes the social workers would overlook the psychological impact it could have on children. So they're wondering if we can use VR to kind of help in that front. So I'm just going to play this video. Hopefully it'll be self-explanatory. So the students scanned a room.
Sit down! I'm talking to you!
So basically, you are able to embody in a child. So you play with all these blocks in front of a mirror. You can put a hat on yourself. So it was kind of a couple of minutes ahead of actually experiencing the scenario. And then your mom said, hey, breakfast is ready.
I've got to go soon. I'm going to be late.
Don't worry. The coffee's almost ready. It won't be long. We can start soon. So Maya and Judith are meeting the children at the playground after school today.
You've got time for a coffee, but you don't have time to clean the flat. You can't even do that. I mean, look at the state of the place. It's a mess. And I'm supposed to give you money. For what? Don't make me do things I don't want to do. Sit the down! I'm talking to you!
Sorry about that.
Calm down, please. Leave me alone.
Oh, you want me to calm down, huh? Are you out of your mind?
Okay, I'm going to pause here. This is actually quite stressful to watch. So it's an ongoing study with social workers in Switzerland. Our partner have a Swiss-German version of it as well. I don't have any data yet. I think we published the poster at TRPVR with some preliminary data with just normal participants, but I'm really looking forward to looking at the data from social workers. We have two conditions. One is you're actually seeing everything from the body of a child or just a third-person perspective. And I think there might be hopefully some differences, right? And this is also another project. We just finished a pilot study that's in collaboration with GOSH, Great Ormond Street Hospital. So that's the biggest children's hospital in London. And what they often the biggest problem they have to deal with is not communicating with the children. All the doctors there are fantastic, really great with children, but they actually find it difficult to communicate with the parents of the child, who sometimes might not, might want something very different from the doctors. So this is a situation where sometimes you have to break bad news to parents, right? And this is actually not too bad in the sense, I mean, there should be a child on that bed as well in the full version we do, but this one we recorded before we had a child in. So a child has been basically put under anesthetic, so he's waiting for a routine procedure, but now you have to cancel it because there's an emergency, so doctor is no longer available, and you then have to go in and tell the mother. And this is a task that's normally performed by whoever is available. Sometimes the medical doctor, sometimes it can be the nurses, and normally people are quite anxious about situations like this. So I won't be able to show you the full study, but just want to show you the quality of animation we're able to do with this work.
This is happening today. I am not going home today. Now, I don't care about the other patients. I'm sorry, I just care about my son. Are you saying that my child is not a priority?
Okay, and similarly, this is kind of one of the most more recent work, mainly led by master students in the lab. And you can see this room looks slightly weird, right? It's not as medical looking as the previous one. It's because it's actually in a psychiatry hospital. And actually a bunch of students went with me to the Black Country, one of the hospitals there. And that's exactly how the room is like, right? As you can see, there is no item that's movable. So you can't actually grab anything and throw it at people, right? Because people who are taken to that room they're there because they have exhibited violent behaviors, right? So basically, we create a situation to hopefully help medical doctors to be able to have a conversation with those patients, because sometimes they find it really frightening. And in particular, when the patient is under a certain age, if they're a teenager, there are more kind of safeguarding issues that could be involved. So they have to be very careful. And then in our case, we actually motion captured with an older actress, and then we changed her voice, make her voice lower, but then we applied it on a adolescent-looking avatar. So
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Wilson, and I'm one of the doctors in mental health that covers this hospital. Is it Alex Johnson?
Where's my mum?
I'm pretty sure she's outside talking with the nurses. Do you want her here?
I want to see my mum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So as you can see, the kind of nervousness, everything is captured, right? So again, it's through working with professional actors, and we're really lucky to have really good actors and actresses working with us. So just a quick summary. I sort of presented 5 pieces of work. 3 of them are still ongoing. Hopefully we'll be published soon. The most crucial thing for any of this work is close partnership with medical doctors, because you won't be able to develop the appropriate scenario that actually addresses the problem they face, and also actually run in experimental studies with enough medical doctors, because they're busy. If you don't have the contact, don't even bother, right? Because it's really, really critical. And then secondly, I think we also benefited from being able to work with lots of brilliant creatives, from script writing to acting. Our students, lots of them have an animation background, and they also put lots of effort in lighting, make everything actually look realistic. I think that's also very important. And third, last but not least, I am very keen on looking at new methodologies to actually be able to measure the outcome of these virtual consultations. Because one thing is to work with doctors who are very empathic, who are very passionate about the technology. The other thing is to convince the ones who are not so much on board to say, hey, there's actually evidence that this is working. And that's actually quite hard, right? Yes, I would love to talk to you if you have any ideas about new ways to actually provide evidence in that front. Okay, so I just want to talk a bit more about creativity by showing you if this is a video. Okay, so someone helpfully, I think it was Michael, helpfully mentioned place and plausibility illusion, which is proposed by Mel back in 2009. Yeah, and yeah, so place illusion is a perceptual illusion, like lots of the images I've showed you. You know that there's two colors are exactly the same, but your brain just can't process it, right? So that's kind of what the hardware of VR provides. You put a headset on, you know that you're physically here, but in a way, like a very bottom-up process, your brain is telling you you're somewhere else, right? So even if the hardware breaks, like Mel often say, even when the hardware breaks, if it comes back again, the illusion is back, right? It comes back quickly. However, plausibility illusion is a cognitive illusion. So it's just like trust. If you trust with someone is broken, it takes a while to actually mend it, right? I mean, nobody's gonna ever take this virtual character seriously because we know she's not real. And I think the same thing applies in medical communication training and many other VR applications involving talking to another human being, right? So you need to make sure that you need to be able to maintain the plausibility illusion because it's a more kind of top-down process, it's a cognitive process. And I think my point here is that, again, we were very privileged to work with people who know their work in the medical field and very, very creative people, and their creativity is really a key element to sustain this plausibility illusion. Right, okay, so just a few more examples, not exactly in medical communication training, but in the VR for health front. I just want to use those examples to end my talk. So this is a work, actually all of the studies I'm showing, the next three are done with our master students. So I'm really actually glad to say that, and they all come with a mixed kind of creative and technical background. So this is a master project we worked with University of Oxford, Professor Daniel Freeman and Aitor Rovira, led by Celine Yu. So we developed so problem with quitting smoking is that you might stop smoking for a couple of weeks and then you go to the pub and you got triggered and you feel quite anxious and stressed and that just wants you to smoke more, right? So the idea is that if they can expose you to these triggers, but in a safe environment inside VR with your therapist sitting next to you, then you can go through those anxiety in a safe space, and then you can do it over and over again, so you can be sensitized to those cues. And next time when you go back to reality, you will do better. So that's something we did with Oxford. And then this one is by a student of mine called Rihanna. She has a cousin who is on the spectrum, actually kind of classic autism. So and the cousin gets really stressed with situations, and then he needed very often a kind of sensory room to try to calm himself down, right? And she developed this scenario with VR. So I'm just gonna play the video.
Welcome to Sensory Space VR, an application designed for those with autism and sensory processing disorders. This virtual environment is modeled after physical sensory rooms, which are often used to help improve sensory processing, cognitive development, and emotional regulation. Sensory Space VR offers a variety of different activities inspired by therapeutic equipment found in sensory rooms. These activities are the bubble area, particle motion play, visual stimulation area.
Okay, I'm gonna pause here. I mean, there is a brilliant application. Do reach out to Rihanna if you're interested in collaborating with her. She's looking for people where she can actually use this to for kids or adults on the spectrum, but without, connections, she won't be able to do that. It's a really relaxing thing. I really like playing this, especially after playing all the kind of domestic violence videos. I normally make sure I include this one to get you more relaxed. So I want to end this with one last example. So Claire is sitting here. Come on, give us a wave. She is the PhD student who was involved in this work. It was kind of in the area of VR and health, but I want to talk about it because it was so unexpected. It's not something I have imagined I would do, right? So basically it was a Saturday. I somehow got on LinkedIn and I saw a message sent, just tag me saying, hey, we have a little girl who is going to celebrate her 4th birthday on Monday, but that's also going to be her last birthday because she has cancer and she was given 2 weeks to live. And her dream is to become a mermaid. She loves mermaid. Okay. And then I tweeted this, and then Sunday morning I woke up, it blew up basically. I had so many replies, and actually I had developers sending me apps to use. I was like, okay, right, okay, now I have to actually do it, and I want to do it properly because I can't just send a bunch of apps to this lovely lady standing in the middle, Rebecca. She is the company owner of virtual reality therapies. She is still a nurse, and she really believed the magic of VR. So she's the one who kind of reached out. The family reached out to her because of her reputation, and she reached out to me, and then I shared it. So then I had basically Claire and Ju coming to my house and after lunchtime, and we went through all the applications people send us, and we chose one in particular, and we put it in the Quest Pro because we think that's a lightweight device. And Claire also, she's also an animator, a sort of modeler, so she was able to change the avatar of the girl. We had actually the photo of the little girl who was turning 4. So she was able to custom make the mermaid more looking like her. So I'm just going to show you. I think there's cheerful music playing. Oh, maybe I turned off the music. I was hoping. Yeah, so that's just me recording the video, but for privacy reasons, I won't show you the actual scenario. But she had a really good birthday. We also had another social VR application where her brother was going in as a mermaid as well, waving with the family members. So the family definitely had a very, very good birthday party. And we're just and she was in this application for a very long time. Claire can probably tell you more because it's a very simple application. You can't move. She's actually wheelchair bound anyway, right? So you're sitting there and then you're holding a mirror. You can see yourself. You can see your tail. It's a simple experience, but it worked, and we're happy. Someone was able to celebrate their, unfortunately, last birthday to fulfill a wish, and the family was extremely happy. So on that note, so as I said, the projector is kicking off. I run a master degree, and our students are extremely creative. So this is something they were able to do within, say, 2 weeks after they start with us, right? So I want to show the last one because I really like the last one as well. Yeah, just creating AR filters 2 weeks, but towards the end, they were able to make full VR experiences. And yeah, so that's my lab. Social, empathic, and embodied VR lab is led by myself and Professor Marco Gilles, but with lots of amazing PhD students and postdocs. I think, yeah, and these are a bunch of our collaborators. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Art, do we have time for questions or not? Okay. Sorry about that. I had a couple of questions, but I will ask them later then. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, next up, our next speaker, which I can proudly present, is Michael Brew. He's from the University of Bath in the UK, in the Department of Psychology, and is also interested in VR, obviously, and also in cognition and the visual system, if I'm not mistaken. And he also developed some sensory substitution device, or was participating